All right, welcome to Wages and Warriors. We're back again this week, talking about the card this weekend. Make sure you check out the pod that we just did, talking about Max Holloway's next opponent, what he should do, and also a little reaction to the Vegas fights that were just announced in October. That's going to be hell of a card for that one. Can't wait for that to get started. And we have one this weekend, like I mentioned. RDR and Whittaker are the headliners for it. And my God, I'd argue this one actually has better fights than the one we saw this past weekend in the BMF belt. But going to be exciting one. Starts early. Little daytime action for you because thank the Lord, because, staying up until 1 a.m. trying to watch these fights can be really exhausting for people on the East Coast. And I'm a, Central Time kid, and that's even still kind of a struggle for me. So thank the Lord that this one's going to be a little bit earlier in the day. We'll start on the main card. Nikita Krylov versus Bogdan Guskov. Look, Krylov is top 10 in the light heavyweight division. He just fought Dominic Reyes in April. Dominic looked amazing, obviously. I mean, ended in a knockout. Probably, can flirt around with being another contention there for a belt shot or, competing for that belt chance. And then you look at, Krylov and you're kind of like, okay, then what's next for you, right? He hasn't really been active. 2 fights in the past 2 years. Yes, he's insanely talented, but he faces a guy that has insane knockout power. 14 of his 17 wins have been by KOs. That's 82%. 7 wins have been in 87 seconds or less. He is the definition of, if it touches you, go on to bed, get out the storybook, you're going to sleep. And he's plus money. That's all I really needed to hear. I didn't really need to look into anything else. I was like, I'm going to take the guy that has this history of knocking guys out quick, getting in and out, against a guy that hasn't had a lot of fights recently. And last one we saw him, he got knocked out. Yes, there's, Bogdan maybe have the lights out material, maybe have the fight experience that Dominic Reyes has. Probably not. And I would argue that he definitely doesn't. But I'm going to bet on it. This guy's explosive. This guy has a firepower. And the guy, I struggle backing a guy that just got knocked out, and that was in April, and we're in July, and he's fighting again. And before that, he just wasn't fighting that, most accurately or that commonly. So I'm not going to, I'm going to trust a guy that's been doing some damage and been more active recently. That's why I'm going to lean on that one. The next one, we have our boy Shira, which I've been a huge fan of, and that he's lost me some money on. I was big when he fought MVP. I thought he could, I thought his stand-up would actually overwhelm Michael Venom Page, and I think he thought he could get around it. Turns out that, Michael Venom Page is an electric striker. He also, and I've talked about this on the show multiple times, but his fighting style is very confusing. It's very hard to adapt to. It's very hard to figure out. There's no way you can really train for it because it's so uncommon. It's so not really to the basics. It's not really to how you're supposed to fight. Hands down, dancing around. That's not how it's supposed to be. It's kind of not in the same exact way at all, but in the similar sentence of why DDP is such a challenge for people is because how he fights is so unconventional and so not what you're used to. And again, the preparation is just really hard. But he faces Mark Andrew at the middleweight division. Mark Andrew, he's a striker and he's a killer as well. As last 3 fights have been tough. 2 of those 3 have been by KOs. And that's where I think Charlotte can actually get one back in the win column. Before he fought Venom Page, he was 15-1. He was this electric guy that everyone was getting excited for in the middleweight division. A guy I really thought he would steam his way into maybe a title shot or title contention maybe this year or even after that win against Page, but he loses. So now he wants to get back in that column. This is a striker versus striker matchup. It is going to be all feet game, and it's not going the distance. I actually think Shah will actually win and actually outstrike Mark in this, and I don't think that's a hot take by any chance. And if you even look at the odds, Shah was a minus 700 favorite. So that's all I need to tell you. And if you even say, no, it's not going the distance, you actually get that plus money at plus 180. And I think, actually, that's yes for it to go there. I wouldn't take that. The nose at minus 235. So how do you kind of play this? Well, probably the best is just how the fight will end at minus 175. And I don't think that's that bad of an option. Find Shire a knockout, I think is probably your best way to bet that for, money back in return. But that's how that one's going to go. That guy's a nut job. The next one is very, very interesting. It's in the bantamweight division. We have Peter Yan versus Marcus McGahee. So Peter Yan, everyone knows who he is. Former champion, 18-5, 3 first-round finishes. Massive contender, name thrown around. Sandhagen's obviously getting a shot at Merab. Will Jan get his shot again? Maybe after this one if he wins it, but more on that later. I've said this multiple times, but I think if Merab wins against Sandhagen, which I think he probably will, he should move up and weight and not even fight at bantamweight anymore because he's just on the division. But either way, Peter Yan's doing his best to kind of stay in that conversation of who should be getting the belt next. And he faces Marcus McGahee, who 6-fight win streak, 8 wins by KO, 10-1, 6.06 significant strikes landed per minute, 2.83 strikes absorbed. He throws them, he dodges them. He's on the rise. He's had this electric start to the UFC. He's a fan favorite because of his finishes and his excitement as a fighter. This is kind of a company man fight for Peter Yan. He's given a guy that's got a lot of hype his chance to make his name even bigger. And he's putting his own ranking on the line, his own contention on the line, and showing that he still got it. Very young champion at 27 years old. I think he still has that championship caliber in him. Good for him for taking this, because I don't think a lot of fighters would take this fight because it's laying a lot down on the line. One, you're fighting someone that you don't really have a lot of film on how he fights or his preparation. And two, if it goes badly for you, you could really set yourself behind on championship fights, on, wanting this or that from the UFC. So it's very risky. Kind of like what Dustin Poirier did with Bennett almost a year or two ago when he kind of took that fight on, and it was kind of confusing. Like, why are you doing this? But you're doing the young guys a favor, or you're doing the guys that just got into UFC a favor, going, hey, you've proved yourself that you're this talented fighter, that you're this talented guy, that you can, maybe rise up in the UFC. Let's see how good you are against someone that has been at the championship level and that has this championship experience. So good on him for doing it. If I was him, I would not have taken it. I would have been like, hey, I'm all set here, boss. But he takes it. And I gotta be honest with you, I lean Jan. But ultimately, I think if you're going to bet this, the best way to bet it is that this fight will end by unanimous decision. Because I think if McGahee goes out there and outstrikes Jan's a very hard guy to knock out. If he took punches from Sean O'Malley and it'd go down, I think he can take punches from Marcus and not go down. So I think that's the way you kind of go. It's a unanimous decision is the winner. That's how it kind of ends. But it's going to be a brawl. It's going to be very, very electric. And it's going to be a big test for Marcus McGahee of how much talent he really has and how good of a fighter he really is. Because if he does take down Peter Yan, I mean, that really shoots you up the board. Now it'd be like, okay, well, what's the next fight for him if he does win this, right? Does he get O'Malley, who could probably look to fight in November or October? You still need more fights on that heavyweight card. Maybe that's the kind of way that you can go, and maybe the avenue you can go until then. Maybe you get Song next. Maybe you get Cheeto next. Maybe you get Mario next. There's multiple different options you can go. Maybe Umar next. Kind of a lot of names in line that Merab's already beaten, but are still trying to get to that top. So unanimous decision. I think that's how that's going to end. Robert Whittaker versus RDR for the middleweight division. Fascinating one, right? So Whittaker is coming off that tough loss against Hamzat, where Hamzat gets him really, really quickly in the first round. It was like first 2 minutes type of action. You didn't think Hamzat's hold on him was tight. It was tight. His something with his chin happened. It was nuts. It was insane. Either way, he goes off and he loses this bout. Nothing against him for it. I mean, he's still a very premier fighter in the middleweight division. He's still very, very good, obviously, and his name's still up there with the best of them. He faces a guy in RDR that, we've done this song and dance before. I thought Bo Nickel could take him down. I thought Bo Nickel could wipe him out. That fight, he brought the Bo Nickel to Bo Nickel. He was controlling him against the cage. He took him down. He was out grappling him, which no one thought we'd ever see that from a guy where that's his bread and butter. That's where he feels most comfortable. But as even Bo Nickel's trainer said after, RDR is this very experienced fighter, like very well balanced. It's not a guy that, even though he's a newbie to the UFC, he's not a newbie to the MMA world. This is a very guy that's smart and he's technical 4.74 takedown average. He's a machine. And he's just been going through a run right now. And, he's number 12th ranked fighter in the middleweight division in the world currently. If he takes Whittaker, man, that's going to really put his name up there. And especially if you look at it, I mean, he takes out Whittaker. That puts him in a prime spot for maybe, a fight against Sean Strickland, maybe a fight against Israel Adesanya, maybe, the loser of DDP versus Hamzat, maybe even gets him a fight in there like that can really rise his stock. Because not only has he been winning, but he's been insanely active. We've been saying his name over and over again on the show. Guys constantly in the octagon. But like I said, insane resume so far of taking out Bo Nickel, taking out Kevin Holland, both respected names in that division. Now his next step's Robert Whittaker. Now where to go in this? How, is it going to go? Look, I kind of went against RDR against Bo Nickel, and it lost me some money. So maybe it's me trying to get that back, and maybe me trying to bounce back right in the win in the W column. But I think that he takes care of Whittaker. I think that while Whittaker's yes is an explosive fighter, RDR is just really, really smart. He's going to keep the pressure on him. He's not going to let Robert really get those big bombs of throws at him. He's going to keep him against the cage. He's going to make it kind of a boring fight and might maybe land a submission, but he's going to control it. He's going to control it from the start. I think that's how he wins this one. He's going to win it dominantly, or he's going to want to win it, because if you win in a dominant fashion, like he's been saying, you shoot up even more. If you just win it and it's kind of like a 50-50, yes, you do shoot up a little bit, but it's like, you barely beat him. But if he wins this in a submission way or a knockout way, or it's a unanimous decision and it's just an absolute mauling of Whittaker, that puts you up in a different category. Look what it did for Hamzat when he took him out in that fashion. It shot him up to a title spot. Down, does he deserve it? Should he have gotten it? You make that argument any which way you want to, but he's still getting it anyways because he's insane talent. But I like RDR in that one. So a little bit of an upset in that. 2 underdogs that I like for the day on this card. That's going to take place this Saturday. It's going to be a fun one. Enjoy it. It's going to be pretty awesome. And then just around the corner is UFC 319. And that's going to be, I am so excited for that one. A lot of good matchups. Obviously, you have the title shot. DDP is plus money right now, plus 150. The champion is plus money. Just going to say that and just let it really sit for a little bit, because fascinating that, after everything we've seen, where taking out Strickland twice, that makes, Israel Adesanya look pretty easy. I know Adesanya struggled a little bit, but still pretty impressive there. That's all I got for Wedges and Warriors. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the show. Comment if you hate it. Comment if you love it. Comment if you want to make fun of it. And make sure you turn into the Bolt Crew podcast, available everywhere you get your podcast. Going to an episode today of our hottest takes going into the 2025 season. And we'll keep ramping up as we have training camp starting already for the Chargers about 1 week in. And we have the Hall of Fame game coming up for the Bolts, where you see him hit someone else in fresh new colors coming up in the next couple of days. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you next time on Wages and Warriors. Myself, Mario Herron. Thank you so much for listening.